Hi, this is Skip Martin from the Daz Band and Kool and the Gang. You're listening to Your Morning Coffee, the podcast with Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart. Weekly music news for the new music business. Don't play no games.
From Billboard, with Superfan streaming on the horizon, how much extra revenue awaits?
From Music Business Worldwide, the No Fakes Act, aimed at cracking down on deepfakes, reintroduced in U.S. Congress, this time with support of Google and OpenAI.
And from The Verge, a view on the internet means even less than you think. Less, Jay? How can it mean even less than I think? Well, I think we're going to find out how. So we're glad you're here. We're going to start the show right about now.
Stand by for transmission.
This is London calling.
Wake up! The revolution is at hand! Your morning coffee is on the air. On the air. On the air. On the air. On the air.
Standing by.
Your morning coffee, the weekly music news for the new music business. It's the highly curated, agitated, advocated, moderated, and liberated digital music information that you need to know. We are your digital music authority. And now from our studios in Hollywood, California, here's your hosts, Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart.
Jay, good to see you, my friend. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. How about that intro? That was Skip Martin. You guys know Skip Martin, Grammy and Emmy award-winning artist, songwriter, producer. He's probably best known as the lead singer and trumpeter for two legendary groups, Kool and the Gang and the Daz Band.
The song, of course, is Tom's Diner. That's a Suzanne Vega song. That's the lead track on his new album, which is coming out in the next couple of months, and we'll be looking forward to hearing that in a very cool version.
Yeah.
Very cool version. Yeah, Jay, so this week, Illuminate hosted its second annual Data and Entertainment Summit, bringing together 200 customers and partners for an invitation-only, off-the-record conversation on the most important issues impacting the music and entertainment industry. You were invited to attend. Let me tell you, you tell me, how was it? I'm going to guess it was really fascinating.
It was really interesting. I was so honored to be invited. The panels that they had covered topics like, the real impact of AI, changes in investment in music and entertainment, modern brand partnerships, creating superfans. Everybody's talking about superfans, emerging market trends, which Illuminate is so good at, gaming and music, and the future of record label and a lot more. They started off, had everybody together, and then they sort of broke us up into two different groups, one for film and TV and one for music. The unifying theme, I think, across the day was that a lot of these discussions, were talking about the importance of data on decision making and how most forward-thinking companies in these industries are combining art and data. So a special shout out to the team over at Illuminate, Scott Ryan, our friend Jamie Markinette, and Haley Jones. Love you guys. Thanks for inviting me.
I can imagine you were just having the time of your life because
it was great.
You love data. You
I
love
do.
data. What it must have been completely a data fest, so to speak.
Yeah.
Jay, you know this because you sent it to me actually, but the Your Morning Coffee podcast, which of course you and I do together, is featured in FeedSpot Top 25 Music Industry Podcasts, and we are at the number 3 slot. So
Yeah.
we're flattered and honored for
That
sure.
was really cool, right alongside our buddy Bobby Osinski. So thank you,
Yes.
FeedSpot, for the shout out. We really appreciate it. Mike, I don't know if you've heard about this conference. I guess it's a conference. It's really, a gathering of industry people. It's called Jump Global, and it's founded by Nick Maiale. He wrote a guest column for Billboard a couple of months ago that we talked about, and he asked, the music industry to support its workforce with leadership, communication, emotional intelligence efforts, in addition to just mental health.
Right. So Nick and the Jump Global team has these cool meetups. There's one in New York this week and one in LA next week, plus an annual summit. You can visit their website to learn more and get involved. It's jump.global. Good stuff. Love to see that emphasis.
Nick and the team over there are doing some incredible work. I highly encourage you to check that out. We have a special bonus episode of the Your Morning Coffee podcast, which is dropping on Wednesday. And we've sort of teased this out the last couple of weeks. But man, I really enjoyed this conversation. It's an amazing conversation with music industry legend Jason Flom. Mike, I've recorded over 1,000 podcast episodes over the past decade or so. I've never recorded a conversation quite like this one.
Wow. And it's fascinating. And all these things that I didn't know about Jason. Jason Flom is, of course, the founder and CEO of Lava Media and Lava for Good Podcasts, Adweek's 2024 Podcast Network of the Year. He served as chairman and CEO of Atlantic Records, Virgin Records, and Capitol Music Group, where he launched global superstars including Tori Amos, The Corrs, Paramore, 30 Seconds to Mars, Katy Perry, Kid Rock, and Lord, and that is a pretty impressive list just talking about the artists he's worked with.
Yeah, Jason is a founding member, board member of the Innocence Project and serves on the boards of numerous other criminal justice reform organizations. His hit podcast, Wrongful Conviction, it features interviews with men and women who have spent decades in prison for crimes they, either didn't commit or they have long sentences, that non-violent offenses. It's been downloaded over 50 million times. So this Wednesday, don't miss this special bonus episode of the Your Morning Coffee podcast. My conversation with Jason Flom. Don't miss this one.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Let's talk about concert tickets. It is very rare that a week goes by where we don't talk about the issues surrounding the buying and selling of tickets plaguing the live concert business.
Yeah, Matt Zarracina, he's the CEO and co-founder of True Tickets. He has some common sense solutions to some of these problems. So I sat down with Matt this week to get his thoughts. So let's listen in. This is Matt Zarracina. Matt, good to see you. Thanks for joining me today.
Jay, thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about the state of the ticketing world today.
Well, look, it's an interesting time to be in ticketing. And obviously, I think everyone's talking about resale. And when I think about the resale problem, first and foremost, we just have to recognize this is not a new problem. It goes back like centuries. I was actually doing a webinar a couple weeks ago, and I was researching this a bit. And you may not know this, but in 1867, Charles Dickens' second reading tour was essentially like the Taylor Swift Eras tour of its time. So these guys who would pay people to stand in sidewalks nearly a mile long to buy tickets for about $2 and then resell them for as much as $50. And back then, what was a localized and challenging problem has just become supercharged with the advent of the internet and deregulation of ticket resale since the early 2000s. And it's an industry at a crossroads. You've got incredible demand for events, and the experience of getting a ticket's really hard and frustrating. And with so much noise and regulation ongoing out there, I think it's indicative of just a risk balance being out of the risk equation being out of balance in this industry. So the people who take the risk, content creators, fans, they're not being rewarded, and it's at the expense of bad actors and marketplaces, right? So
yeah.
When we think about legislation, it seems to be more performative than effective. And I'm more of a kind of, I think technology has a shot at solving this problem.
It sounds like this problem's been going on for a while. So how do we sort of overcome some of those problems, like the use of bots and just overall ticket fraud?
Look, there's not going to be a silver bullet to this problem, right? So if anything, I think that there's been much too much focus on specifically trying to solve the bot problem. Obviously we should have efforts to stop bots, but what people need to understand too is bad actors are simply using bots to do everything but the stuff that's illegal. So they're using bots to open up browsers, get them in line, and then everything but purchasing a ticket is being done by a bot, right? So people are finding using these technologies to kind of get around it. What I think needs to happen is a more comprehensive approach, and that's where having chain of custody solutions after the ticket is purchased is key, right? And so that then provides identity and accountability. So identity is kind of knowing who has a ticket. Accountabilities are the rules and terms and conditions of those tickets being followed. And that's key to me. Right now, it's kind of sell it and forget it. We need something that can ensure there's traceability and enforceability across the life cycle of the ticket until it's scanned.
Right. And tell me a little bit about True Tickets, the company that you work for. How does that solve that problem and establish trust?
Yeah, it's exactly those two things that I just mentioned, right? So we establish trust by doing the two things. One is our clients, they'll know at any given point in time who has a ticket and who doesn't. And the second is just ensuring that people play by the rules. And to accomplish that, we like to say our service provides our clients and partners 3 superpowers. The first is the knowledge of who's in possession of a ticket at all times. And there really shouldn't be a question about that. And the technology exists to do that today. The second, and I think this is the most unique thing we offer, is a rules engine. So our clients can set rules around how those tickets are governed at the universal level, all the way down to the ticket and the order level. And that rules could be simple, like, can the ticket be reshared? Can it be shared? Does the owner have to go? Can it be resold? Where can it be resold? How much can it be resold for? And the third is this ability to reclaim a ticket, right? So a ticket issuer should have the ability to pull back a ticket at any given point in time. Maybe a show's canceled, maybe it's postponed, maybe you think there's just malicious activity around it. Being able to pull it back, take it off the market, gives them the assurance that they can solve that problem, right? And when you do those things, you're essentially bringing transparency, to the ticketing process, and that essentially establishes trust or reestablishes trust.
Matt, where can people learn more about you and True Tickets and what you're building?
Yeah, if anyone's interested, you can check us out at true-tickets.com. You can follow me, Matt Zarracina, on LinkedIn. You can follow us on LinkedIn. Drop me a DM if you're ever interested in talking ticketing. I'm happy to talk to anybody about it. It's a super interesting space. There's a lot going on, and I'm excited for the future that we're building in it, because I think we're tackling some pretty challenging problems.
Thanks so much, Matt. Appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thank you, Jay.
Wow, super interesting. Then it's as we mentioned earlier, it's a topic that we have talked about often and will continue to be talking about.
Yeah, that resale market, it's a tough nut to crack, but we have some smart people working on it.
It really is. So a lot going on in the music industry this week. Let's start with some Spotify news. Spotify addresses premium ad change rumor. Spotify has addressed speculation. Its advertisement policy is changing after subscribers threatened to cancel their accounts.
Yeah, they did. Rumors spread on social media that the new quote-unquote premium plus tier would be required to remove ads. One ex-user warned, quote, "I will cancel my subscription indefinitely, and so will many, many others," end quote.
Yeah, so Spotify told one now deleted post, "This rumor is false. Premium music listening is and will remain ad-free."
There you go. There was some other Spotify news. They raised prices in Benelux, Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg. The cost of a Spotify subscription there, it recently went up, and the price for an individual plan in Benelux to €12.99 euros and €11.99 euros in Belgium.
So prices for student, duo, and family plans also increased in all 3 countries. Neighboring countries like Germany and France have not experienced a Spotify price increase since 2023 and remain less expensive than the Benelux market, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if this is sort of a test dipping a toe in the water to prepare for other territory.
Yeah, I think it might be. So Coachella was this last weekend, and if you weren't fortunate enough to go, maybe you saw some of it on YouTube. I saw some really incredible performances, but I learned something really interesting about the cost of these tickets and how some of these festivals are helping fans to attend. So tens of thousands of music fans, descended on the California desert this past weekend. And the first of two iterations of the Coachella Music and Arts Festival, and that's outside of Palm Springs, California.
Right, so approximately 80 to 100,000 fans each weekend will have coughed up the $599, that is, ticket price to see headliners Lady Gaga, Travis Scott, Green Day, and Post Malone. But ticket price is often just the cost of entry. Many of those fans will spend more than $1,000 per weekend on lodging and cough up hundreds of dollars more for food, drinks, and merchandise. That gets up pretty pricey.
That is a lot. And, that's a substantial spend for anyone, especially the 20-somethings in Coachella's target demographic. But this is the part I found really interesting. The festival organizers have helped finance their purchase through these payment plan programs.
Yeah, fascinating. Approximately 60% of general admission ticket buyers at this year's festival opted to use Coachella's payment plan system, which requires as little as $50 up front for tickets to the annual concert.
Yeah, and the Desert Festival isn't alone. Lollapalooza, Electric Daisy Carnival, Rolling Loud, they all sell a majority of their tickets using some kind of payment plan system. I didn't know that. That's super interesting.
I guess it has to be that way, though. Who has
so expensive.
Who has that kind of dough? A good piece in music business worldwide. It's by Ali Nawaz Khan. Warner Music Group is readying its Superfan app with help from Ed Sheeran. So Warner Music Group's long-promised Superfan app is moving closer to reality, with a more sophisticated version now being tested by a select group of users. That's according to a new Wall Street Journal report.
Right. We've been hearing about this from Universal, Warner Music Group. Everybody's talking about super serving the Superfan. And this app is one of the first things to come out. It features Ed Sheeran, as its first featured artist. And, this app has progressed from its earlier beta version. It was first made available to some employees for testing in the spring.
Indeed. So Sheeran is now actively posting, as they say, on an in-development version of the app. That's according to the Wall Street Journal interview with Atlantic Records CEO Elliot Grange.
Yeah, but it's unclear from this Wall Street Journal report when other artists might join the app, other than Ed Sheeran, or what Warner Music Group's long-term plans are for this platform. Sources tell Music Business Worldwide that Warner Music is still experimenting, so the exact look of the app and its launch date are sort of up in the air right now.
Right. The initial beta version of the app reportedly resembled an Instagram feed of only Ed Sheeran posts that users could like and comment on, but was considered bare bones in both tech and content. The Wall Street Journal reports that Sheeran had a lot of feedback on the initial version.
Right. Warner Music Group CEO Robert Kinsel says that this new Atlantic Records CEO Elliot Grange is now working closely with the tech team to improve this product. The project is believed to be steered by an internal tech team at Warner Music Group, led by the company's president of technology, Ariel Barden.
Right, and there was an interesting piece in Rolling Stone last week about artists using secret Instagram accounts to announce new releases. The article is called How Public Finsta, that's F-I-N-S-T-A, accounts became the new album rollout method. It's by Andre G. over at Rolling Stone. From Drake to Playboy Cardi and Frank Ocean, secret Instagram accounts have become the preferred method of introducing new music.
Yeah, they call it Finsta, F-I-N-S-T-A. And that's short for fake Instagram, or private Instagram account created so the owner can post the most unrestrained version of themselves outside of the view of family or employees. Most people keep their Finstas secret as concealed debauchery. That's the point, right? But it's becoming a public addendum to artists making a marketing rollout. So rather than making an announcement via a verified account or a press release or some other traditional marketing method, these accounts express exactly what they want to an audience that really understands the fragmented communication style of the extremely online.
Right. So a host of prominent acts have created alternate accounts recently. Everyone from Drake to Kendrick Lamar, Playboi Carti, Pharrell, and Lil Yachty. So Jay, I'm sure you're going to get your Finsta account going very soon. And before we get into the stories this week, legendary producer Howard Benson has launched a label with 3 Days Grace drummer Neil Sanderson. That's called Judge and Jury Records. For nearly 30 years, Howard Benson has produced breakout records from acts like Crazy Town, P.O.D., and My Chemical Romance.
Yeah, he later produced multi-platinum records from All American Rejects, Hoobastank, 3 Days Grace, Skillet, Santana, Adam Lambert, Kelly Clarkson, anybody we've heard of, and many others. I got to sit down this week and have a conversation with Howard about launching Judge and Jury Records. Let's listen in. Howard Benson, so good to see you. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Sure, of course.
So tell us about the launch of Judge and Jury Records. You did this with Neil Sanderson from 3 Days Grace. Tell us about it.
Yeah, we Neil and I made a lot of music together. So we've, I've never really had a partner per se in anything that I've done. And this all started where we worked with an artist named Diamante that I had produced her 11/7 out records, or Better Noise, they're called. And I sort of decided, we had a good time doing it. We put it out independently. It did enough. It earned its money back, and we see royalties from it. So why not just do that on kind of a bigger scale? And my son showed that he wanted to be in the music business on that end of things, like the record company end of things. And it just was one of those things that we started. It's a lot harder to start to do these than people realize. And it's not the music, it's the all the other stuff, like the accounting stuff and all the LLC. Being in California, you're dealing with LLCs all the time. And, like I never really thought I'd want to do it, knowing what a nightmare that is on the other side of the desk,
the business side.
Yeah. But I think that we kept it, we tried to, in the beginning, the people we knew, like to sign people that we were like sort of, trusted. And we found that like we've developed this family around us. I'm using that term very loosely here, but the people that we know, and they bring us projects. And so the people are not unaware of us, So it seems like the artists kind of like working with us. I mean, we've had a couple of stiffs and all that, which you always have. But it's not a very, we're swinging. I like, in my career, I've swung for home runs all the time. This is a different kind of business. This is like you're swinging for doubles and singles and triples. And, the artists realize the rock business is not the Taylor Swift business. So the royalty stuff is not, it's okay, but it's not it's driving the touring, it's driving the merch, it's driving the social media, all that other stuff. But it still has to be really good, like the quality. And we've decided to make the quality a big part of our sales pitch to them, which is because Neil and I have had so many hits, that we want to make good music. We're not interested in just, making anything. So, and that's something that you have to really get into your company's mindset, because it's easy to look at social media numbers and go, well, I'll sign that because of this. But boy, if they can't write songs, that's fine, as long as they will take songs. But if they won't write or take good songs, then we're really screwed, And so, again, they have to trust us because we've had to hit records, and not all of them trust us, so they should sign with us,
No, you got to play the game today. You got to work. Back in the old days, you could just write, record, and tour. Today, to your point, you've got social media and short form video, and also all sorts of other things that you need to do. Where can our listeners learn more about you and what you're building at Judge and Jury?
On our website, we have a website, Judge Jury, I guess it's judgejuryrecords.com. And also my own personal Wikipedia and website. It all talks about that. I mean, we're pretty findable, online. So we, have maybe, 15 artists signed to the label. So right now we're distributed through the Orchard. So you find us there as well. Hopefully they find us naturally, you know what I mean? They like the music we make. And one pretty cool thing is we just crossed a million monthly listeners on Spotify. So
congratulations. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, that was a big thing. And we use our Judge and Jury moniker as a feature on a lot of artists. They want to do like Saliva with Judge and Jury, because that brings in all of our fans. It brings in again, that's something my son deals with. It's a lot of algorithmic shit. So,
yeah. Well, keep up the good work, and I'm anxious to see how you build this thing. But at the end of the day, it sounds like this is your thing. It's not somebody else's thing. So you're actually having a little bit of fun with it.
Yeah, I think it's there's really 4 people in our company, I would say, that do all the work. So we share equally, kind of me and Neil are the creatives on it, and Grady and Angus are the ones who do the work. And then we have a bunch of people in the back of that. So it's pretty split like that, more or less. But I am having fun because we can still produce records. Like, I didn't want to not do that anymore, So I just worked with Neil on his new 3 Days Grace album. And so, just like every career in our business, your fingers are in lots of pies,
Yeah.
How it works now.
Yeah.
Well,
congratulations on the launch.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Howard. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right, then.
Well, good luck to Howard. That's going to be an interesting new label and new stuff coming out from him. Looking forward to that. And before we get going on the stories, Jay, what do you say we thank our sponsors? Happy to have them, and we are super lucky to have them. They help us put the show on every week.
That's right. The Your Morning Coffee podcast is sponsored by the Mechanical Licensing Collective. The MLC is a nonprofit organization. It's really making a big difference for songwriters, music publishers, and other rights holders by transforming how they receive mechanical streaming royalties from services like Spotify, Apple Music in the US. Every month, the MLC collects the streaming data and royalties from those platforms. It matches the money to the creator who's earned it, and then it pays them or their publishers or admin partners the royalties that they're due. To date, the MLC has already distributed over $2.5 billion in total royalties and has nearly 50,000 members worldwide. So if you're a songwriter, composer, or lyricist with music streaming, or a publisher or admin, you need to become a member of the MLC to ensure that you're not leaving any money on the table. Best of all, it's free. So the MLC pays out 100% of the royalties that it receives. Visit themlc.com to learn more.
And they do great work over there. We are also sponsored by Hypebot. Since 2004, Hypebot has chronicled the new music industry and the trends and technologies that are changing how music is discovered, consumed, marketed, and monetized. It is edited daily by founder Bruce Houghton with help from Alana Bonilla. Hypebot and sister blog Music Think Tank are published by live music discovery and marketing platform Bands in Town.
Yes, sir. We love Bands in Town. Over 90 million live music fans trust Bands in Town to get personalized concert alerts, recommendations, and messages from their favorite artists. It's the #1 artist services platform, and it connects over 650,000 artists with their superfans. Managers, labels, agencies, and artists access their own dashboard to manage and promote tour dates across all platforms.
Indeed, and every week I get to hang out with the bon vivant, Mr. Jay Gilbert, music industry consultant, curator of the weekly Your Morning Coffee newsletter, and a former executive with Universal Music, Sony Music, and the Warner Music Group.
Yeah, and every week I get to do this show with my good friend Mike Etchart, longtime host of Sound and Vision Radio, formerly of SST Records, Warner Music, Capital EMI, and Universal Music Groups. And he was the one who turned me on to the Mike Campbell book, which I finally finished, and I absolutely loved it. And we have some other documentaries we're going to be talking about in the next week or two, and a book that I'm almost through. It's called John and Paul, A Love Story in Songs by Ian Leslie. And it's about, of course, Lennon and McCartney. I'm about 26 chapters deep, and it's really good so far.
Well, I've only read the review of it in the LA Times, and it got a great review. So that hopefully will be my next book as well. So let us get on with the stories, Jay. This first one by our good friend Glenn Peoples over at Billboard. With Superfan streaming on the horizon, how much extra revenue awaits? Two new reports suggest there's demand from both investors and fans for higher price subscription tiers that offer extra features.
That's right. Glenn writes that interest in superfans and their revenue potential has become so strong that market research firms and equity analysts are digging into the topic. This week, Bernstein released a report on music streaming services' potential moves, and Media Research released a new report about music streaming pricing strategy.
Right. So for the uninitiated, a music superfan has been defined by Luminate as those fans who interact with artists and their content in multiple ways, including streaming, social media, physical music purchases, and buying merchandise. These superfans make up 19% of U.S. music listeners, that's according to Luminate, and are more likely than the average fan to buy physical music, spend more on music, discover new music, contact or connect with artists on a personal level, and participate in fan communities.
That's right, and you're listening to two super fans right now.
That's right, you are.
Efforts are underway to tap into these super fans, labels, and artists. They employ e-commerce to sell merchandise, LPs, and CDs directly to consumers, D2C, and sort of circumventing traditional retail channels and building a direct billing relationship with the most valuable fans. Startups such as this company, Even, by the way, I was listening to them talk at this Data and Entertainment Summit. Really cool stuff. So these startups like Even, EVEN, and Fave, Sony Music and Warner Music Group are investors, in Fave. They're focused on connecting artists with their most fervent supporters. Given the multi-billion-dollar size of the music streaming market, though, Spotify's plan to launch a superfan tier could be the most impactful play.
Right. Well, Media Research also added to the superfan knowledge base this week by releasing a report based on a survey of 2,000 U.S. consumers. The main takeaway is that media found widespread interest in paying a higher price for a streaming service with additional features. Just under 3/4 of people surveyed have some level of interest, in quotation marks, in paying for a super premium tier as an add-on to the basic subscription plan.
Exactly what people are willing to pay varies greatly, though. 22% of respondents are willing to pay an additional $1.99 per month, while 10% are willing to pay an additional $3.99, more than double the current $11.99 price for an individual subscription.
So to give an idea of the amount of revenue at stake, consider that there was an average of 100 million subscribers of subscription music services in the U.S. in 2024 who paid an average of about $8.91 per month. That's according to the RIAA. That figure, though, does not include limited tier subscriptions such as ad-free internet radio. So those 100 million subscribers, though, generated $10.69 billion over the year, which works out to about $106 per subscriber per year.
Wow. So if 10% of those 100 million subscribers, which includes student and family plans in addition to standard individual plans, if 10% paid more than double the current price, total revenue would increase almost 11% to nearly $12 billion. And that's equal to about $118 per subscriber annually, or $9.80 per month. That nearly 11% revenue growth is equal to about $1.15 billion of incremental royalties.
So the RIAA's average revenue per user, that's ARPU, of a little under $9 for 2024 is lower than the $12 or $13 price being charged for the most popular individual plan, suggesting the 100 million subscribers figure includes many student and family plans. So, to measure the effect of the price increase on the RIAA's ARPU, multiply ARPU by the ratio of the super premium individual plan, so that's about $13 plus about $14 to a standard individual plan, which is $13.
Right. So Glenn goes on to write that without an increase in the number of subscribers or a price hike, doubling the fee for a tenth of subscribers would deliver about 11% revenue boost. Not all of these consumers would jump, to this super premium tier at once, however, meaning a double-digit increase in subscription revenue would accrue gradually over multiple years. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So charging an additional $1.99 super premium fee on top of a standard subscription price would result in an incremental $334 million. Total revenue would increase a little over 3% to $11 billion, and ARPU would rise from $8.91 to $9.18.
Right, that's that average revenue per user. Another option to expand the subscription base is a low-priced subscription light tier, and that incorporates advertising into paid subscriptions. Music streaming subscriptions have kept advertising out of their paid products, but there have been suggestions, namely from Goldman Sachs analysts, that prepare the influential Music in the Air report that a subscription light tier that includes ads could help expand the subscription market.
So paid video subscriptions used to be a respite from the advertising world, but if you watch any of these, advertising has become well established on video platforms like Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Hulu. Amazon Prime now inserts ads in movies, and Netflix and Hulu offer a low-cost ad-supported option to make their products palatable for more price-conscious consumers.
I don't know about you, Mike, but it really bothers me when I'm paying for a subscription and I see ads. I just hate it. Media's survey suggests a subscription light option would be unpopular. I think they're right. About 3/4 of respondents who aren't currently subscribed to a music streaming service aren't interested in starting. This sizable group of consumers doesn't listen to music often enough to pay, or they find current prices too high. Excluding the 100 million U.S. subscribers, there's approximately 188 million Americans aged 13 or older who don't subscribe to a streaming service. There are almost 52 million people under 13. So based on Media's findings, roughly 141 million of them aren't interested in paying for a subscription at all. For them, there's also, YouTube and ad-supported radio.
For sure. So what's more, a subscription light offering could be problematic. Media found that ad-supported paid streaming attracted interest only at very low price points and warned it could harm overall subscription revenues by cannibalizing normal subscription tiers, with paid subscriptions currently creating the majority of U.S. recorded music revenue, and with subscription growth playing a prime role in Wall Street's expectations for music companies. Both platforms and labels may be unwilling to put that revenue at risk by offering a less expensive choice to millions of consumers who may soon be looking for ways to tighten their belts.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting to see how it plays out, because I'm not super interested in paying for a premium tier to get early access to tickets or to get exclusive content. At least not at this point. Maybe there's some other perks where you get early access to things, or maybe you get things that are exclusive to that tier. We'll have to see what they come up with. I'm not so sure that many people are going to jump over to that premium tier, but you never know. If they've got a very solid and devoted, engaged fan base, like with some of this K-pop or with Latin music or, with the Swifties, whatever it is, maybe. We'll have to wait and see. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Well, and I think they kind of touched on in this article as well, which is, the other sort of big sort of, thing in the room is just the volatility of the U.S. economy at the moment. And that could really impact any of these things. And in fact, might also lose subscribers just because of the changing economy.
That's right. That's right.
A lot of things to think about.
Absolutely. Crazy times. Our next story is from Daniel Tenser at Music Business Worldwide. And the headline is No Fakes Act aimed at cracking down on deepfakes reintroduced to U.S. Congress, this time with the support of Google and OpenAI. It's a bipartisan bill aimed at cracking down on unauthorized deepfakes. And as I just mentioned, it was reintroduced to Congress with the support of the music industry and other creative sectors. And this time it was joined by some tech companies.
Right, so the Nurture Originals, Foster Art, and Keep Entertainment Safe, that's the No Fakes Act, was originally tabled in the Senate back in July of last year, but failed to make it out of a Senate and House committees before the end of last year's session due to a busy schedule that included budget negotiations.
Right, so this new bill is similar to last year's in that, it effectively creates the right of publicity at the U.S. federal level for the first time. In essence, the ability for individuals to control the use of their own likeness and voice. This issue's really become particularly pressing amid the boom of generative AI, which has led to deepfakes of celebrities and private individuals.
Yeah, so the new bill is being brought before both chambers of Congress at the same time, the House and the Senate. A number of major tech companies have also lined up in support of the No Fakes Act. That's including Adobe, Amazon, Google, IBM, and OpenAI.
Right. We will definitely be reporting on this. Good to see it's back in front of Congress. Our last story is from David Pierce from The Verge. You sent this to me, and I really enjoyed this piece. And I as soon as I read it, I thought we need to share this because there's so many misconceptions. The headline is "A view," in quotation marks. A view on the internet means less than you think. Views are the most visible metric on the internet. You can see in more or less real time how many views something got on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and other video platforms. X, formerly Twitter, tracks views for every single thing that you post, as does Threads. A view is the universal currency of online success. More views equals more fun, right?
Well, it's all nonsense, Jay. Views are nothing. Views are lies. So you may not need me to remind you of this. We've known for years that view counts are meaningless, to the point that Facebook wound up getting sued for aggressively inflating view counts in an effort to convince people to make Facebook videos. Others have written thoughtfully about how stupid view counts are, but we still talk about view counts. View counts are still everywhere, so let's talk once again about view counts.
Right. So a view, in reality, is not a universal metric. It's not really anything. It's whatever a platform wants it to be, which usually has no actual correlation to whether someone actually encountered and experienced that piece of content. You can just make views whatever you want. And if you don't like the way the numbers look, make them something else.
So let's run through a few of these, shall we? The simplest ones to understand are the social platforms. Instagram, TikTok, and as of last week, at least YouTube Shorts all count a view the second a video starts playing. This is objectively absurd. Every time you scroll, even if you immediately jump to the next video, the platform logs that you watched the video the same as if you'd seen the whole thing. That's like saying if you're in a Best Buy and you walk past a TV playing Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, you've now technically seen Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. Congratulations, you're a pirate.
You're a pirate. In a way, though, that ridiculously easy bar to clear is actually a more accurate measure than some others. On Facebook, for instance, a view is defined as, quote, the number of times a reel or video has played, plus the number of times photos or text were on screen, end quote. Since videos autoplay all over the platform, those two metrics are effectively the same thing. The metric is so unhelpful that Facebook actually offers creators two other numbers: 3-second video views, also known as people who press play, and 1-minute video views, which is the least slightly closer to people who actually watch this thing. Those numbers aren't public, though, because they'd be a lot lower.
Right. So the view has been the universal meta metric since last fall, when Facebook combined all its other performance and engagement metrics into just one. For photos, text posts, and stories, the company wrote in a blog post, views are calculated as the number of times they appear on a person's screen, including repeat views. So that used to be a different metric. Your content being presented to someone was known as an impression, but they had to interact with it in some way before it became a view. Now it's just views.
They're changing the rules of the game while we're playing. In this way of defining views, the platforms also have all the control. Think about it. You don't press play to get the video going, and you don't have to stick around for it to count. Whatever the platform wants to get views on, it gets those views. There's no step two, no intermediary, no actual matching of content and audience. There are just views.
Yeah, so even the Hollywood types are being pulled into the vortex of made-up view counts. Netflix once clocked a view only after you'd completed 70% of something, which they point out here is the closest thing to actually tracking whether you've watched something of any metric that they've discussed so far.
Yeah.
Now, it only takes 2 minutes for Netflix to decide you've watched something. Netflix actually picked 2 minutes because it's long enough to indicate the choice was intentional, in quotation marks. First of all, no, it's not. Second, Netflix knows how much you actually watched. It just wants the numbers to be higher, around 35% higher than under the previous metrics, Netflix admitted.
Well, like my old boss used to say, it's not fraud, it's marketing. Ironically, Netflix is one of the few streamers that explains how it calculates views at all. Most keep that metric quiet, and they say things like, it was a huge hit without having to provide any actual information. Even YouTube is cagey about its calculations. It's generally accepted wisdom. You have to watch 30 seconds of a standard YouTube video for it to count as a view. But if that's official policy, I sure can't find it anywhere.
Well, it is incredibly obvious, by the way, that all the companies peddling these fake numbers know what they're doing. If they thought public-facing view counts were legit, they'd offer those same numbers to creators and advertisers. Creators typically get to see non-public data like watch times and actual interaction, but even they are consistently being given less and less to work with.
Advertisers, though, they have the run of the place. The YouTube and other platforms, they still track impressions separately from views, but only for ads. YouTube may count every short scroll as a view publicly, but it only pays creators on what it calls engaged views. That's different. Many platforms even tell advertisers how many people watched a quarter, half, 3/4, or all of a video. The platforms themselves are collecting all of this data and more, of course, in an effort to better tune the algorithm. They know the answer, but they'll never show it to you.
Right. So they've been doing this whole internet thing for quite a while now, and it's pretty clear that just about all the metrics are bad. They've turned the internet into a game to be won, a system to be gamed, a race to the biggest numbers, even when the numbers don't mean anything. Maybe we'd all be better off without the numbers, but they're not going anywhere. So all we can do now is remember, views are not views. Views are lies. Well, Jay, it's going to continue, and it just reminds me of sitting in meetings when you're talking about a release or something, and you're just looking for good news to report to your boss. And so, you look at all these things, hopefully they're good, and these can be good news, and, you want to tell everybody the good things that are happening with a particular project, and sometimes they just aren't. But This stuff is just, there's so many now, all of these sort of metrics, sort of semi-fake or non-consequential that everybody's reporting on, but it is getting ridiculous, I must say.
I need to go in and look at YouTube again because I had read that they pay after 30 seconds when you hit that mark. In fact, when you go into YouTube Analytics, you can look at any of your videos and there's a graph and there's a line right at 30 seconds. So you can see the decay curve of the audience. And it's right there at 30 seconds. And typically you've lost, half of your audience by the time you get to 30 seconds because nobody has an attention span anymore with short form videos and reels and shorts and TikTok and an 8-second Canvas video. Like nobody has that attention span anymore. So getting past that 30-second mark can be a challenge. But this was an eye-opening article about how things have evolved and changed. And, you may see a front-facing count. And I've heard this about TikTok a lot, that it's the easiest platform to get views, but the hardest to get engagement. Because as you're flipping through your feed, each one of those counts as a video view. But as you know, that's not really an engaged video view, is it?
Not at all. Not at all. Well, we will continue to talk about this for sure, but in terms of it changing, I don't see it changing anytime in the near future, unfortunately. But as we get to the end of the show, if you enjoy the show, please, Jay and I would appreciate it if you just tell one friend. And big thanks to the MLC, Hypebot, and Bands in Town, our wonderful sponsors. We certainly appreciate their weekly input and help with the show. I couldn't do it without them. So on behalf of my good friend Jay Gilbert, I'm Mike Etchart. Thanks for listening in, and we'll be back next week on the Your Morning Coffee podcast.
You've been listening to Your Morning Coffee, the weekly music news program for the new music business. Join Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart next time for the digital music news you need to know.